Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14 presented by Stakes here to recap a couple of bowl games from January 2nd. Let's start with the ReliaQuest Bowl, which was a defensive struggle despite all the kids missing here and there, and especially on the Illinois side. And it wasn't the best day for Will Rogers, and the final score was misleading, but good day for Mississippi State on an emotional afternoon. And State pulls out a win over Illinois and ends the season 9-4, and I think a good 9-4, Blake.
Yeah, I mean, bowl game's pretty much secondary to everything else that's happened over the past, several weeks. So I think we kind of said that in the preview going in is, yeah, I mean, it's not to say that players didn't want to play and all that, because like we said, it was going to be a very emotional type thing, and you knew they were going to go out there with one goal in mind, and they achieved that. Finding a way to win that game. We talked about if you were just looking at it from a statistical standpoint, obviously Illinois' defense would present some issues just based on how they played all season long. Being the number one scoring defense in the country and those kind of things. So I think that was kind of the expectation. I don't think we ever thought, if you just look at it from the on-field stuff and not everything that's happened off the field, I think you knew it was going to be a bit of a struggle, and so I don't think that was that surprising at all for this to be a lower scoring game. But give Mississippi State some credit. They're down 10-3 going into the fourth quarter, and make a right off the bat in the fourth, get the touchdown, and from there kind of cap it off with the game winning field goal, and then the fumble return to cap it off there. So a nice win, and like I said, an overall a 9-4 season. Certainly, I think you'll take that if you're Mississippi State. But obviously they're, as we said, I mean, honoring their coach and Mike Leach, and there's a lot of questions to come, I think, just moving forward. But yeah, I mean, they'll certainly take a nice bowl win after a very tough, like I said, several weeks.
How many people were screaming at their TV on that kickoff play?
Yeah, that's probably true. So, yeah, I know it's just one of those things that, like we said, bowl games they're fun, but they're weird sometimes in terms of how they play out, and you get some really crazy plays, and that was just another one, joining the mix there. So, but I mean, again, the finish, you couldn't have asked for a more. I know it wasn't the most thrilling game from a scoring standpoint, but you couldn't ask for a more entertaining finish with just how things played out there in those final seconds. So,
well, looking forward, Zach Arnett, the coach now, and Will Rogers will be back for another year, has the chance to break all kinds of records. I'm curious what State's identity is going to look like going forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair question. I don't really know how I don't even know where you start in terms of answering that. I mean,
well, I think you probably can't go away from the way it's been constructed. I mean, especially if Rogers is your quarterback, he's been very productive in this style of offense. Yesterday they threw it 45 times and they run it 22, which is I probably close to the run pass balance they had this year. I don't know what you do in that case. I guess you just keep doing what you've done before, but it'll be interesting to see stylistically what that looks like going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you would expect them just to tear everything down and start over by any means. I think most people probably understand that it will be more of the same. Like we said, it's just such a unique circumstance that there are no for sure things. I think just in terms of what you could expect and maybe how things are set up moving forward. But I think you at least know that with Zach Arnett there, he's. I mean, it's always going to be in the back of his mind too, just what Mike Leach was able to build at Mississippi State, and certainly they want to continue to honor that. And guess what? He had a lot of success this season in terms of what they've done, and obviously they've done some good things since he has been there as the coach. And so yeah, I think they will try to carry that over into the future and build off of that. And I think that's the way they'd like to do it. And they've got a lot of good pieces in place in terms of a roster and how they've constructed it. And my guess is that they will do more of the same, because as we've seen. I mean, it's worked for them, and I think that's kind of something they can try to build on and see where it gets them in terms of just the landscape of the SEC and SEC West. So,
and on the other side, they'll lose Emmanuel Forbes, who's one of the best DBs probably to ever play at Mississippi State. He's not like a premium draft prospect. I saw ESPN saying he was, I think, the 10th rated corner, which I would think he'd be better than that as a pro prospect, but I'm also not a pro scout. We'll wait and see where that goes. Let's talk about LSU Purdue, which was never a game. Before we do that, a quick shout to our presenting sponsor, Stakes. Predict sports better than the crowd for a chance to win NFTs with Stakes. Players can cement their sports predictions against friends, other fans, and influencers forever. Don't let your sports genius go overlooked. Join Stakes and have the best predictions captured in the moment. Go to playwithstakes.com/14. Use our invite code Southeastern14 for a double welcome bonus. Well, the Cheez-It Bowl, Cheez-It Citrus Bowl, excuse me, was a game for about 5 minutes. I guess the story of the day was Malik Neighbors, who did a lot of stuff, and LSU just jumped on Purdue and never let up. 63-7.
yeah, it's very unusual. I don't know how many games in the history of college football you could find where each team has 4 different guys that throw a pass. I thought that was one of the
Oh,
weird
my.
statistical things from this game, and there's a lot of them, like I said, when you have a 63-7 game. But yeah, on each side, you had 4 different guys at least attempt to pass, and a couple of those were wide receivers, but just kind of that's a weird stat you don't see very often. Like I said, I would be willing to bet that number is very low, maybe a handful, if that. And maybe it's the first time it's ever happened. I have no idea, but I found that kind of interesting when you look at just the overall setup there. But yes, this was never close. This was all LSU, and like we said, for an LSU team that was right there, with a chance, had its college football playoff shot and let it slip away with that loss at Texas A&M. We mentioned you just never know how a team's going to bounce back and be ready basically a month after the most recent game they played, which of course they lost 50-30 to Georgia in the SEC championship. And you just never know what the mindset's going to be after that long of a layoff. And we always talk about that in bowl games, but LSU came to play, and yeah, I mean they came out, took care of business, and did not let up. And that's something you can build off of moving forward, and you can kind of use this as a springboard into the off season and the next season, even if the game in and of itself, does not mean a whole lot. It's just kind of it's another bowl game, but at the same time, to win it emphatically and just to see some of the guys you're going to have returning do some really good things, I think that's encouraging if you're an LSU fan. And again, I think it's even more encouraging the fact that Brian Kelly had his team ready. He had them ready to play, and they were fully on board. There was no no questions about motivation here, because they came out ready to play, and that they didn't let up. So,
Well, you've got one heck of a talented quarterback room. Jaden Daniels, I guess, is eligible to enter the draft, but I'm not sure if he's going to. You got Garrett Nussmeier, who's got an incredible arm. You got Walker Howard, who a lot of people think is the future there. All those guys played yesterday. The receiving room, we talked about Neighbors. You got Mason Taylor, who's a very exciting young tight end. Brian Kelly, of course, is going to recruit. They had some good players on the defensive side of the ball. He's always been strong on that side. I just think that the stock on LSU has gone up. I mean, look, that's obviously one of the easier places to win in the country, but I think that the speed at which he was able to come in and sort of rebuild this thing with a 10-win season, a win over Alabama, I think he's done some things to change the culture. You had the weird thing with Kayshon Boutte. You had a lot of guys. I think that you had a mindset change, I think, inside that locker room and things like that. That brought discipline and some things like that LSU had lacked under Ed Ogeron. And it's just hard not to like the future of this program, given who's coaching it given the direction it took so quickly this year and given the money that those people are putting behind that program.
Yep, as we said, NIL is important in this era, and they've got a great recruiting class coming in, top 5. Got a lot of their transfers. They got a lot of impact transfers that will come in and make a big impact right away. So yeah, I mean, I think that's what our when we talked about LSU coming the season, it was this that maybe doesn't feel like an LSU roster just yet, and give Brian Kelly credit. We said it was hard to find a more improved team from game 1 to whatever game 13 than LSU, just based on the fact that you didn't know if the roster was going to be able to to hang with some of the other teams that we projected in front of them. And what do? They come out and win the SEC West, and with a roster that can still be improved. And like we said, it's one that I think, given who all they're going to be bringing in next season, like it's going to continue to move in the right direction in terms of all the talent they're going to have there. And they definitely exceeded expectations this year. I know LSU fans probably had higher expectations for them than maybe people like us did, just because we looked out and said, man, it's really hard to pick them in front of a Bama or in front of an A&M. Obviously, A&M was a very different circumstance based on just how disappointing they were. But teams like that, you just didn't know how or if you could pick LSU in front of those kind of teams. And like we said, to cap the season off with a dominant bowl win, and I know a little bit of disappointment to end the regular season when they were right there in the discussion for the college football playoff and kind of controlled their own destiny there. Yeah, I mean, it was a successful season without any question whatsoever.
Couple more thoughts on LSU before we leave. First, a shout to our sponsor, BROTHROW. If you don't like betting, win $11 to win 10. BROTHROW is the place for you. You can bet 10 to win 10. It lets you bet on all 50 states. It's not the house, so bettors have a fair chance at winning. It's the only sports betting platform that doesn't take a cut of every bet. No need to deposit money. No minimum bets. No need to connect your bank account. Bettors pay each other directly. It's a hassle-free sign-up process that lets you get in the actions in seconds. Go to brothrow.com/SE14. And when you get there, ask to join our Southeastern 14 group, which is small but growing quickly. And we'll have some fun inside there. And just a great partners. Very excited to have them on board. Okay, Blake, I go back to where LSU started the year. We talked about the culture issues. On top of that, LSU was not on probation, but sort of was. What I mean by that is that they had, 63 scholarship kids? Something like that. Like, there was such a massive sucking hole that Ed Ogeron left that program with, that Brian Kelly was able to fill quickly and get results despite having 20-something less scholarship players than everybody else in the league. Yeah, that was super, super impressive. I mean, the odds of that, and I think, and I'm not taking a shot here, our friends at Pick Six Previews, I think, picked LSU last because we said before the season somebody's going to have to be last in the West. And that wasn't an unreasonable thought, given some of the uncertainty I think that LSU had a quarterback, given the scholarship situation, given the strength of the other teams in the league. And again, that just underscores the job that he's done there.
Yeah, I mean, think about how disappointing game 1 was. I mean,
yeah,
think about how many people were just, they're ready.
They
to fire
wanted him
Brian
gone
Kelly
after game 1.
After one game, yeah, and I mean, that's SEC football. We've seen that before, but it was. I mean, again, that's where I say, like, think about September 4th to January 2nd. I mean, think about how big of a difference it is in terms of just thoughts on where the program's at and how big of a jump that happened in 4 months basically. I think that's just something that you can certainly lean on now moving forward. And like we said, it was. I mean, remember, this is again, they won the SEC West. That featured Alabama and Ole Miss, and these teams that were regularly in the top 10, all season. And I know Ole Miss struggled down the stretch, but Alabama, LSU won that game, and kind of a season-defining game there. And so I mean, all those things, you combine them together, and you think about how much different things could look if let's say after game one, they don't start to really make the kind of progress, or if it's a little bit, or if it's a lot slower than what actually happened. If Jaden Daniels doesn't just become someone, like we said, it was like he was reeling off just touchdown after touchdown after touchdown. And he had, several of those games in a row where he just could not be stopped. I mean, it could certainly be a lot different, but all that stuff happened, and it happened for the good with LSU. And yeah, I mean, like I said, you got to give that staff credit for what they put together, because we did. And I know some people probably did criticize that at the time, but we weren't the only ones. There were, a lot of people out there, like you said, there were some people that were picking them last in the division, and some people took a long time to actually get on board with what they were doing early on in the season to really feel like, okay, are they for real? And then you looked at the roster, and we just said, man, I don't know. Like, is that a roster that can get them where they want to go? And turns out they answered all those questions. And aside from just the disappointment of losing that game at A&M, I don't think there's any doubt LSU fans will look back on this season and feel like maybe this is, that springboard to get them right back to where they want to be, and that's winning a national championship. So,
did you see the Cheez-It dump at the end of the game?
I didn't see the.
It was funny.
I know
They
it's always
dumped a bucket of Cheez-Its on Brian Kelly's head, and then there's a bunch on the ground. He just reaches down and grabs a handful and starts munching. One of the players ran over and did the snow angel thing in the pile of Cheez-Its.
You know what? A former LSU coach used to eat grass, so I mean, it's like, come on, it all runs together.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, it was great. But I don't know, something about combining Cheez-Its with citrus fruit just seems gross, but they made it work yesterday.
Not a great combination, I don't think. But
we're gonna get like lime cilantro Cheez-Its at some point, or I don't know.
Well, it's gonna happen, all kinds of stuff. Yeah. So
yeah. All right. Well, it's we got one more game to go. We have dropped a preview on that this morning as we do this Tuesday morning. We got basketball stuff. We previewed all the games for Tuesday night. It's going to preview Wednesday's games shortly. We're going to preview every SEC basketball game this year in conference play. So if you're a basketball nut, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. That helps us out. And baseball, goodness, baseball's 6-7 weeks away. We'll be there for you for that too. He's Blake Lovell. I'm Chris Lee. We're Southeastern 14. Thank you for watching.